All right, good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, October 7th, 2025. Welcome to today's Budget and Finance Committee meeting. I want to note that there will be no disruptions allowed during the meeting, which includes disruptive noises and gestures that impede this committee's work. Let's begin with the clerk. Please call the roll.
Yaroslavsky?
Here.
Blumenfield?
Present.
Hutt? Here. McCosker? Absent. Hernandez?
Yes, President.
4 members present and a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Morales. Colleagues, we have 25 items on the agenda today, including 9 closed session items. We're going to do closed session consent once we are in closed session. Colleagues, I recommend we approve the following open session items on consent: 1 through 10 and 14 through 16. Colleagues, are there any open session items listed for consent that you'd like to pull? Councilmember Blumenfield.
Number 7, I have a question and a possible amendment.
Okay, 7. So noted.
And what? Okay, and item 1.
1 and 7. Okay. Councilwoman Hutt, do you have any? No? Do you have, okay. All right, wonderful. Colleagues, we're going to hear items 1 and 7 after items 12, 11, and 13, and we're going to go in that order. I know a bunch of people are here for 12. We're going to move now to public comment. Mr. Whitley, would you please read the instructions on how to give public comment for today's meeting?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. To people providing public comment, you will have 2 minutes to comment on today's agenda items and 1 minute of general public comment. We will tell you when your time is up. When speaking on today's agenda items, you must be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as possible. If you are not on topic or if we cannot tell, you will get 1 brief warning from the chair or I. At that point, you need to immediately and clearly return to topic, and if you do not do so or again stray, you will forfeit the rest of your speaking time and we will move on to the next speaker. When it is your turn to speak at the podium, please state which of today's agenda items you would like to speak to. Madam Chair, please call the speakers.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to call a bunch of names. If you can come up and start to stand along that wall. You don't have to come up in the order in which I call your name, but please don't go up to the wall until I've called your name. And I'm not going to read names for vulgar, clearly not real people. Audit, LA BBC, Harriet BBC, Spindler, Eloriaga, Graciano, Duarte, Sabra, Herman, Jackie, Bart Young, Cindy Young, Dara Danton, Emily Berry, Jonathan Villegas, and Luz Castro.
Harassing me. He's trying to touch my ass or something. What were the items? Can you repeat? I can speak on, Madam.
Madam Clerk, would you please remind us of the items that are available for public comment?
All items are available for public comment. It's 1 minute per item, up to 2 minutes total for the items, and 1 minute for general public comment.
3 minutes, right? All right.
2 + 1.
3 minutes, right? Okay.
Go ahead.
Why is preventing tobacco so important for us? Well, first of all, we shouldn't and should not deny people from smoking. Measure 64 was passed, and all these smoke shops that you permitted to open up in every white fucking neighborhood, they're visible. So why are we trying to come up with some research for prevention when you allow these permits to sell tobacco, dummy? That's relevant to what I have to say. But look at all these cases, 17 to 25. Ain't that a motherfucker what this city is doing to us? Just drain the juju tree, huh? Drain it, man. If there was lemons on that tree, they're no longer there because all the jujus are squeezing my nuts for that lemon juice. Because we just keep paying as taxpayers for all this shit and get nothing accomplished. That's why Bloomfield wants us to vote no on the support of that bullshit arena called the convention. But let me stay on topic regarding the Edward Memorial Justice Assistance Program. Are they the same program that helped that pro temp mayor, that black gentleman that recently got out of jail for free on the basis that he called in 911? I believe there's a bomb threat here at City Hall. What the hell's wrong with William? Brian had a good job. Brian fucked up, didn't he? Now Brian is ratting out with all these snitches back here behind me, because I know in the crowd there's got to be some snitches, because if you ain't snitching, then these bitches are robbing you. So you better step up to the plate and start complaining, people, because this fucking city is now putting meters at your doorsteps for an extra $1.50. Now to my non-agenda public comment. Brandenburg, Bob. Brandenburg versus Ohio, Bob. 395, 444, 1969 deals with the budget. You know why, Bob? Because America and California keep sending the Jews money to Israel to destroy lives, kill children, murder people. The same way the Jews killed that one man for power and money, those 33 pieces of silver or whatever fucking change it was. But is that what it's for, Bob? Bob, you have a different look today than you had in the last few days. Why is that, Bob? Because I can speak the tongue of the truth, that the Bible is like a double-edged sword, and when I strike you with it, Bob, like I do in the book of Romans, chapter 1, verse 26 through 27, that God hates you, Bob, and he hates those fucking faggots that rape children.
Hi, my name is Emily Berry, and I'm from CD11. I'm a member of DSA, and I'm here to support the LA Public Bank. I'm a former Wall Street banker, and I can assure you that big banks aren't special. They have capital, just like LA does. They have tools and processes and expertise, all of which Los Angeles can have as well. The thing is, Wall Street banks have to report to shareholders and investors, whereas the city is responsible for the public good. With the California Banking Act in place, it is now you, the stewards of LA's public goods, responsibility to view taxpayers as investors in the city and not to look at us as simply bystanders. Please consider funding the public bank so that you can keep our fees public rather than privatized at the hands of Wall Street. Thank you.
Hi, thank you to the council for allowing me to speak today. My name is Dara Danton. I'm from Pacific Palisades, and I'd like to speak today in regards to item 11, to waive fees imposed in connection with permits to repair or rebuild buildings or structures damaged or destroyed by the January 2025 wildfires. I am here to be the voice for those that are unable to be here in person today. My neighbors who are seniors on fixed incomes, legacy families that have lived in the same home for decades. These families, like most of us, were terribly underinsured. Every single dollar will allow for these families to rebuild and be able to go home. I gracefully ask the council to vote in favor of waiving all permit fees for the community members of Pacific Palisades whose homes were destroyed and damaged in the Palisades fire 9 months ago today. Thanks.
Before you begin, Councilwoman Park has a few words to say, so after you speak, I don't know your name, but after you speak, Councilwoman Park will ask you to come up and make some remarks. Thank you. Welcome.
Awesome. Hi, good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Luz Castro. I am with Inclusive Action for the City and also a proud member of Public Bank LA. As a community development financial institution, mostly known as a CDFI, Inclusive Action works every single day with immigrant entrepreneurs like street vendors, helping them access capital and resources to either start a business or grow their business. I'm here today to voice my support for item number 13 for the public bank feasibility study. I urge the council to immediately fund the next phase. This plan will outline how LA can use its own balance sheet to save money, cut borrowing costs, and reinvest in priorities that impact constituents in the city of Los Angeles. This includes affordable housing, green energy, small businesses, and community development. A public bank would also increase capacity for CDFIs like Inclusive Action, and it will help us further support immigrant entrepreneurs throughout the city and bring to life innovative projects that prioritize community needs over profit motives. Thank you.
Councilwoman Park. Yeah, come on up. Mr. Spindler, you'll be next.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and colleagues on this committee, for the opportunity to speak here this afternoon. I'm here to express my unequivocal support for item 11, the creation of a climate resilience district, and item 12, the waiving of rebuilding fees for individuals who lost everything in the Palisades fire. Together, these are two critical elements of our work to rebuild the Palisades and to help the Palisadians get back to their homes. And let's not forget, this rebuild is not voluntary, not for anyone who lost their home or their property. Palisades residents weren't able to plan ahead or save up for what happened on January 7th. Thousands were dropped by their insurance companies prior to the fire. And among those who were lucky enough to still have insurance, many lack adequate coverage. Every dollar counts for residents facing astronomical costs trying to rebuild their homes and their lives. The least we can do is permanently waive the fees for those who lost everything in the worst disaster in our city's history. This isn't without precedent either. After the Northridge earthquake, at a time when LA was also grappling with severe budget deficits and the lingering effects of recession, we waived rebuilding fees for properties that were damaged or destroyed by the earthquake. This policy also aligns with LA County, which has waived rebuilding fees for structures damaged and destroyed in the Palisades and Eaton fires, as well as other California cities that have had to rebuild after major disasters, like Malibu after Woolsey and Santa Rosa after the Tubbs fire. In June, we considered this ordinance in the Ad Hoc Committee for LA Recovery, and I want to offer my thanks to my committee members for moving this ordinance forward with urgency. At that time, we considered a CAO report regarding the fiscal impact that did not reflect the full scope of permits under consideration for waiver. So for that reason, the committee unanimously instructed the CAO to provide a supplemental report with a revised fiscal impact. Today, we have a supplemental report that I believe vastly overstates the fiscal impact of this policy. Each of these rebuilding scenarios, from like to 150%, assumes that everyone who owned a property with a standing structure on January 6th will rebuild their home. Unfortunately, we know that despite our best efforts, properties will change hands and be sold, making them ineligible for the waiver. These cost estimates also don't reflect how much is cost recovery versus impact fees. Why is that distinction important? Because cost recovery has to be reimbursed by our general fund, while impact fees don't. Ultimately, people are already rebuilding, meaning we should have an initial tranche of data that can help us properly budget this over future fiscal years. The Department of Building and Safety and the CAO should be able to tell us the number of properties that have received permits for like construction and 110% versus 130 or 140% build-outs. We should know how many households are adding ADUs to their plans. We should know how many applicants owned their properties prior to the fires, in addition to how many have been reimbursed by insurance, making them ineligible for the waiver. With these numbers, we can have a more accurate assessment rather than the multiple scenarios outlined in the report. This is data that we should have and be demanding currently. And just some of the back of the envelope math here. According to this report, as of August 31st of this year, DBS has suspended $3.75 million in permit fees, comprised of 566 unique addresses. That amounts to about $6,200 per address. So if we were to assume that every structure that was destroyed or damaged in the fire is eligible for the waiver, which CAL FIRE estimates at 6,500 units, would amount to about $48.4 million. As we heard in committee and as you will hear today, we need to provide certainty to residents for those who have had their permits waived and begun their rebuilding already, as well as those who are moving through the permitting process. More delay creates more uncertainty, and so I encourage us to move this ordinance forward and demand proper data reporting so that we can begin to budget for the impact. An impact that I believe will be far smaller than presented in the report in future fiscal years. Finally, I just want to convey my support for the Climate Resilience District Feasibility Study. As we rapidly approach the one-year anniversary of the Palisades fire, our efforts are focused on rebuilding. The unprecedented destruction caused by the fire will take years to recover, and the CRD has the potential of speeding up that recovery. The visual carnage of the Palisades fire will forever be embedded in our minds. But less visible, but very important, are the long-term negative impacts of the fire. Those will be felt for years to come, and the faster we rebuild it, the sooner we can recover from it, and the sooner our city's financial health will recover as well. The creation of the Climate Resilience District can be an invaluable tool in our recovery. It will expedite the recovery of our lost property values, sales tax revenues, and other revenue streams, along with addressing long-neglected infrastructure that will make our city financially stronger and limit our liability. So for these reasons, I ask you to support both of those items. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Councilwoman Park. Thank you, Councilwoman Park. We're going to go back to public comment. Mr. Spindler.
Right. So the goddamn items. So why would you charge building fees when you started the fire in the first goddamn place? You guys started that fucking fire when there was a report on fireworks being lit. The fire department didn't go out and fully put it out. So it kept burning, Bob. Burnt the whole goddamn thing to the goddamn ocean. And then there's no water in the fucking reservoir. And you're not gonna rebuild? You're not gonna give these people a waiver of their fucking building fees? What kind of cocksuckers does it take on this council to be, how do you sit in these fucking chairs and do that? Do you realize when a court of law rules that you guys burnt those houses, you ain't gonna worry about the building fees, you're gonna pay to build the houses back. A federal district judge is one of the plaintiffs over there in that fucking building that sentences people to prison. You burn his house down, he's suing the city. Did you know that? That guy goes to the FBI, and they're looking into it. You know, you guys don't understand the shit that you're involved in, the trouble that's coming to City Hall. You just don't understand. And you're limiting public comment, so I get thrown out of 3 meetings for 1. It ain't gonna matter, Buckethead. It ain't gonna matter, Blob. You're going to prison. You burnt the fucking Palisades down. You can't burn the Palisades down. It's not like South Central. These people have money. They know people in the FBI. They know judges. They're not going to sit the fuck back and worry about building fees. They're coming to put you guys away behind bars for the rest of your life. Get a fucking clue. Now, speaking of prison, I have not one but 4 false bills on my building, mailed in the U.S. mails, Buckethead, with false bills. And the DWP refunded me the money, admitting they did it. Now, I asked for a paltry sum of money, and I get bullshit. When the fuck are you going to learn to settle cases correctly? When are you going to have a city attorney that understands that? Your city attorney is a fucking nincompoop. This dumb fucking bitch doesn't understand anything. She's costing the city hundreds of millions of dollars. So they're not going to settle my case. I'm going to file it, and then I'm going to dish out what I got, and then the feds are going to go, hey, I thought you fixed that software billing problem over there. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. So again, don't worry about the building fees in Tracy Park. Worry about the FBI, niggas. You got big problem.
Madam Chair, I'm offended. I need you to read the rule.
Is this his first warning? Did he violate the rule during council this morning? Do we know?
He did not violate.
He did not, okay.
This morning, but
Madam
he is
Clerk,
now.
So the speaker who's now done, you violated Council Rule 7. This is your only warning. If you use it again this week, you'll be out for the rest of the week. Okay, we're going to move on to the next speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
All right, good morning, Council President Blue Mandingo. Let's start with all items and general public comment. Hopefully we can stop this council member brutality. Start with item number 1. It is about the opioid remediation program, and I'm a huge supporter of this program because for me, I am a long-term drug addict. I'm a long-term opioid user, but the problem is that when I end up on the street, I mean, I'm trying to, asking our council member Hernandez, I'm asking our council member Blue Mandingo for helping me. How can I get rid of my opiate addiction? But again, I receive no response. Nobody cares about me because I'm not a Palestinian. No, obviously, council member does not care about me because I'm not African enough. But I just believe I want to support this opioid remediation program so I can save all of my brothers and sisters from Jason Reedy Figueroa. So that will be absolutely the best of the best. Now let's move on to the next item is about item number 2. Item number 2 is about unclaimed money of the LAPD. Yes, I am here to support this one. Is because our LAPD continue to losing money every single day. We are losing money to liability payment towards all of his Palestinian payments from Blue Mandingo. We are losing money towards all of the other city overspending. LAPD just lost another $100 million towards your $2.6 billion convention project. So LAPD will not gonna have enough budget for the next 5 decades. So we are continue to taking money from LAPD from our 24-inch Sergeant Duarte. That's why our Sergeant Duarte right now is no longer having a 24-inch. It's only 18-inch right now. But we need to make sure we refund every single 24-inch LAPD officer. We cannot continue to take money away from them. Now let's move on to general public comment. I'm really happy today that our council member Blue Mandingo has not attacked me yet. Hopefully he's gonna attack me after 1 minute, but that's okay. I am here to advocate a sustainable budget. What does that mean, sustainable budget? That means when you are having $800 million budget deficit, you cannot spend $2.6 million on a convention project. I warned you a year ago. I'm telling you right now. I'm going to continue to tell you next year. But our council member Below Mandingo told me that I'm just American. I don't know how to do math, or maybe I did my math wrong. I'm sorry. I'm trying to learn my math right now. But as far as I understand, if you're owning the city, if you're owning your city, 800 million, how is that possible? You are spending 2.6 billion. How is that possible? You're going to spend 3 trillion next year just to fund your Palestinian project. It doesn't make any sense.
My name is Bart Young. Appreciate your time today. I want to make a point on the fees. I've been struggling for 9 months to get permits from DWP to put in temporary power. At first, they said the fees don't apply to them because they're a proprietary division of the city of LA and it doesn't apply. I raised it to a higher level and I've met with executives at DWP and they contend that the fee waiver does not apply to services and materials. Yet the amounts that I've paid, which is about $3,600 to date, none of it really looks like service and materials. These are all paid in advance. They're not itemized. There's no description of what it is. And the people at the counter call it a permit. They call it a fee. So I'm just asking you, even if you approve today the waiver of the fees, which I think you will, and I hope that you will, please understand that I do not want DWP to wiggle out of this on the basis that they're only charging for service and materials. It's just not true. So, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call some more names. Let's see. Hassan Zuniga, Reza Akef, Allison Holdor, Billy Jones, Damir Vukovjak, Dan Pelagero, Daniel, no last name, Daphne Gronich, Elizabeth Hernandez, Eloisa Galindo, Florence Joyner, Giselle Mata, Haldis Topel, and Hank Wright. Come on up.
Good afternoon, Councilperson Yaroslavsky and esteemed members of the City Council. It is my pleasure to be here today. I'm one of the thousands of fire victims house leveled to the ground on January 7th, 9 months ago. On my block alone, we have painters, 2 retired school teachers, 3 people that are on a fixed income. This waiver of permits, I cannot tell you, is critical. The only person that benefits from not adhering to the precedents that the city has done in the past for this disaster are developers. So I beg you to do so. Personally, we were dropped by State Farm or with California Fair Plan. We started building. We started building before the waiver of permits, and we have incurred thousands of dollars in permits to date. That's money that we could use to make our houses climate resilient, and these things are costly. So I beg of you, please do so, and thank you very much for hearing us.
Can I have 2 minutes? One for general, one for item 12, please.
You may go ahead.
Thank you. I'm a builder. I've been a builder for 15 years. My name is Reza Akef. Today I represent a new formed coalition. We're a bunch of builders who came together in the Palisades. You know, we are ones who've been building there for the last 15 years. We're licensed, bonded, and insured. We were boots on the ground. We helped people recover their items after the fire. We were there during the fire, directing engines to burning buildings. But at key here is one major part, is that people are hurting. 95% of my clients for the rebuild are hurting. They're underinsured, they don't have the money to rebuild completely, and they're hurting. And these permit fees is like a little help. And this is just from building and safety and not from all the other departments that are gonna incur. So I urge you to support waiving these fees and help these people, because I know the Palisades would do the same for any other part of Los Angeles at the same time. That being said, in general, the building department and the Department of Water and Power, the way they charge fees is broken. I can show you 100 different ways how those fee system is broken and not really correct. So when the CAO says it's 280 million, I'm happy to sit with any council member and explain to you how those adjustments aren't really accurate. Because I'll tell you right now that I can apply for a permit for a $2 million house and tell Building and Safety that it's only going to cost me $200,000 and only get charged $1,000 permit fee. But an honest person who goes up there and says, the building will cost me $2 million, will get charged a $6,000 permit fee. And there's no one to say otherwise, and that's wrong in your system. Same thing goes for DWP in replacing water meters and returning power to residents. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Demir Vukovic. I'm one of the residents that lost their house in the Palisades also. I think, you know, I only have comments for number 12, I guess. First, thank you for putting this on your docket to vote on. I hope you vote that it's something you do to help the residents of the Palisades. I think that the permitting process has been promised one thing and deliver another. We're navigating as best as we can. It would be a very limited help, but somewhat helpful to have at least the fees for this department waived. For those who are looking to rebuild, we have a permit already submitted for a rebuild in our house, and I think just any consideration for that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Hello, Council. Thank you. My name is Billy Jones. I'm going to cry because that's what I do, and that's okay. I lost my house in the Palisades fire in January. There are 18 houses on my block. 3 of them are lived in or were lived in previously by retirees who are not sure they can afford to come back. The waiving of these permit fees will allow them to stay, allow my block to keep its multi-generational nature, allow us to have the town that we want. We would do this for anybody else. We would do this for any other neighborhood. You might do this for any other neighborhood without thinking about it. The median income of the Palisades is the same as Westchester. Please don't discriminate against us because you think we're different than you. We are suffering and we need your help. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dan Pelger. I'm speaking on item 13. So first off, thank you for having us on the agenda today. Los Angeles has the second largest budget in the country, but we're navigating a $1 billion deficit. Rising service demands are on the way, as is increasing uncertainty from federal and state funding. A public bank is the structural tool that will allow the city to do more with what we already have. It will allow us to generate higher yields, reinvest locally, and finance our own priorities. The feasibility study we're asking to be funded, it's not going to bind us to anything, but it will give us a roadmap. It asks the question, can we leverage our real estate assets and our balance sheet for affordable housing, climate resiliency projects, clean energy transition, and public infrastructure in a way that keeps control here in LA? Perhaps it could look something a little bit like the way the New York City Economic Development Council looks. Let's fund the study.
Good morning or good afternoon, Council. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I am a Palisadian resident who lost their home in the fire. And I am talking in support of waiving the fees. I'm a 4th generation Californian. I lived in the Palisades for 35 years. And it was just a normal Tuesday when I lost my home. And it's a home I rose my children in, and I have always tried to give back to the community. I volunteer for the Auxiliary Communication Service of LA City. And so it's kind of a bittersweet thing to see my house wrecked and having to go through this rebuilding process. It wasn't something that I had wanted, and I could just use a little bit of your help. My neighbors could definitely use your help to be able to get through this very difficult time. So thank you so much for your consideration, and I hope that you see your way through.
Hi, my name's Daphne Gronick. I'm a longtime resident of Pacific Palisades. We bought our house at the end of 1997. It was an area that had about 175 single-family homes, and there's barely 4.5 of them left. And many of our neighbors are elderly, have been there for many years, some for over 50 years. Many cannot afford to rebuild. We were underinsured. Many of them were uninsured because they had been booted from their insurance company. They no longer had mortgages. They are struggling to try to get ahead and to try to rebuild. Many want to rebuild, but the difference in having the fees waived or not waived could be the difference in them being able to come back to their home, which they lost through no fault of their own. And I think that it's something that a lot of people think the community is rich and can afford to do this. The community is not a rich community. There may be people that can afford it. A lot of the people cannot, and everybody is stretching to try to make do. So on behalf of the elders, the people who cannot afford to do what they would like to do and rebuild, we're really asking you to support us and the fee waiver.
Thank you. Before you speak, can you just give me 1 second? Mr. Spindler and Mr. Herman, if you make any more hand gestures, you're out. Thank you. Please go ahead.
My name is Haldis Topol. I have lived on 625 Enchanted Way in Pacific Palisades for 50 years. My husband bought the house in 1960 for $54,000. We've lived there, we've raised our family there. We've never planned to leave. We've never planned to sell. We've never envisioned making a profit from our home. And a profit today will not serve me at all. I used to work for the city for 20 years. I have live on retirement pay. And I beg you to please waive the fees as much as you can, because every dollar that I have to spend out of my own pocket, and of course we're all terribly underinsured, will limit the amount of money I have left to retire and live in my house. I'm 83 years old. I would like to live there for a few more years. Thank you.
Elizabeth Hernandez, item 13, public comment. My name is Elizabeth Hernandez, and I am an ACE member. I also live in CD9, and obviously I represent ACE. The LA City Council has approved funding for the public bank feasibility study. I urge the council to immediately fully fund the next phase. This plan will outline how LA can use its own balance sheet to save money, but cut borrowing costs and reinvesting in properties like affordable housing, green energy, small businesses, and community development. Delays will keep costing the city hundreds of millions yearly in finance costs. It's time to stop sending public money to Wall Street, reinvest in our communities, and help prevent future budget deficits. And it's really important, not just because, you know, we need it at this time. We definitely need a public bank in LA. When you know, everything that is going on the federal level with the government, we need to have our own money invested within our communities. This is our money, the money that we work for, and it should be invested here in our cities, in our people, in our community, in people like the Palestinians who lost their houses in the fires. With all the disasters and everything that is going on, we must act. We must have something that we can lay back into it, where we can say, hey, this is from our community, and we can use that to sustain our livelihoods. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Voy a hablar sobre el artículo 13 y comentario público.
Good afternoon. I'm going to speak on topic number 13 and public comment.
Financiar el estudio de viabilidad del Banco Público. Mi nombre es Tomasa Martínez, soy miembro de ACE.
The Public Bank of California, my name is Tomasa Martinez. I'm a member of ACE.
Representante de la organización, el Ayuntamiento de Los Ángeles ha aprobado la financiación del estudio de vialidad del Banco Público. Insto al Ayuntamiento a financiar de inmediato la siguiente fase por completo.
As a representative of the member of, apologies, a representative of the member of, sorry, Los Angeles, sorry, could I get a repetition? ¿Me puede repetir, señora? ¿Me puede repetir, señora?
El Ayuntamiento de Los Ángeles ha aprobado la financiación del estudio de viabilidad del Banco Público. Insto al Ayuntamiento a financiar de inmediato la siguiente fase por completo.
The Los Angeles City Council has approved the Bank of California, and we would like to continue with the following steps immediately.
Este plan describirá cómo Los Ángeles puede usar su propio balance para ahorrar dinero, reducir los costos de los préstamos y reinvertir en prioridades como vivienda accesible.
This plan clearly outlines how the city can save money, lower costs, and reinvest in more affordable housing.
También en energía verde, pequeñas empresas y desarrollo comunitario. Los retrasos seguirán costando a la ciudad cientos de millones al año en los costos financieros. Es hora de dejar de enviar dinero público a Wall Street, reinvertirlo en nuestras comunidades y ayudar a prevenir futuros déficits presupuestarios. Gracias.
It's also time to invest in green energy and small business and to stop sending hundreds of millions of dollars in our finances that will be wasting hundreds of millions of dollars in finances, and we will need to stop sending money to Wall Street, and we need to take back our city.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Eloísa Galindo, soy miembro de ACE.
Good afternoon. My name is Frederick Yolando, and I am a member of ACE.
Voy a hablar sobre el punto 13 y comentario público.
I'm going to speak on topic number 13 and public comment.
Hoy estoy aquí para decirles que financien el estudio de vialidad del Banco Público.
I'm here to tell you today that we need to approve the public bank movement.
Como todos sabemos, los bancos privados, muchos de ellos están solo para ganar en bienes raíces, pero especialmente en fósiles. Invierten mucho dinero comprando fósiles, donde daña el medio ambiente. Creo que ya es tiempo de que tengamos un banco público en nuestras comunidades, especialmente por todo.
As we all know, private banks are mostly in it for themselves, and they invest in property and fossil fuels. And the fossil fuels are bad, and it's time for the public to take back and to have a bank that we can call our own.
Especialmente para ayudar a los estudiantes
Especially to help students
que quedan con muchas deudas estudiantiles.
that end up with a ton of debt, of student debt.
El Ayuntamiento de Los Ángeles ha aprobado la financiación del estudio de vialidad del Banco Público.
We have approved the analysis for the viability of the Bank of Los Angeles.
Pido al Ayuntamiento a financiar
We ask that the council to finance
la siguiente fase por completo.
the following phase in its entirety.
Este plan describiría cómo Los Ángeles puede usar su propio balance.
This plan will line out how Los Angeles can invest its own balance
para ahorrar dinero, reduciendo los costos de préstamos
to save money by reducing the costs of our loans
y reinvertir en propiedades como viviendas accesibles,
and to reinvest in things like affordable housing,
cambio climático,
climate change,
pequeñas empresas
small business,
y desarrollo comunitario.
and community development.
Los retrasos seguirán costando a la ciudad cientos de millones de dólares.
Any delays will continue to charge the city, will cost the city hundreds of millions of dollars.
Es hora de dejar de enviar dinero público a Wall Street,
It's time to stop sending public money to Wall Street.
invertirlo en nuestras comunidades
Invest into our communities
y ayudar a prevenir futuros déficits presupuestarios.
and to help reduce future budget deficits.
Especialmente que estamos viviendo una crisis de racismo porque las familias de bajos recursos están siendo detenidas por ICE.
Especially in this time where families are going through racism because their low income houses are being affected by ICE.
Muchas familias están sufriendo por los incendios,
A lot of families are suffering because of the fires,
por las redadas,
because of the raids,
mientras que los amigos de nuestro actual presidente Trump,
while the friends of our current President Trump,
los amigos de Wall Street,
all of his Wall Street friends,
están haciéndose más millonarios.
are becoming even more millionaires.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Giselle Mata, and I'm with the community group ACE. And I do want to say first, I want to thank the council members, the 9 of you that did contribute from their discretionary funds. We do appreciate it. We do need more to step up and fund this feasibility study, because currently the city of Los Angeles spends more than $1 billion annually on fees and interest to large municipal banks. By eliminating these high costs, the public bank allows the city to save significant money and reinvest those funds in vital local projects that actually benefit Angelenos. From affordable housing to improving schools to sustainability initiatives to the Palisades fire to Altadena fire, all of these $1 billion in fees could be going towards those folks who need it most. And right now, the renovation of the LA stadium, the convention center is unfunded. This could go a long ways towards fixing that. The feasibility study is a nonpartisan research organization, or 2 nonpartisan research organizations, the Jan Family Institute and the Berggruen Institute, developed lending models in a series of reports showing how the LA Public Bank could work. Here are the key findings. Affordable housing. The LA Public Bank can support affordable housing by offering low-interest construction loans, recapitalization loans, mortgage assistance, and ADU financing, increasing supply and reducing costs. It can create over 17,000 affordable housing units in the first 10 years while returning a profit to taxpayers. Renewable energy projects, small business and financial justice, profitability. Please fund the study, and those that haven't contributed, please do so. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call the last of the names. Uh-oh. One second. Thank you. Jill Smith, Julia Gandelsman, Justin Skaggs, Lori Kudzel, Mei Sung, Paul Nagel, Steve Danton, Tomasa Martinez, Trinity Tran, and that's it. Come on up.
Hi, thank you very much, council members, for having us here today. My name is Lori Kutzel, and I also lost my home in the Palisades fire. I agree and sympathize with and empathize with everything that everyone has said so far, and I just beg you, please, to waive the permitting fees. Between the financial and emotional burden that we're all going through, it would really mean a lot, and it would show just your compassion and mercy on all of us while we struggle to rebuild and hopefully be able to go home. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Hi, I'm here to speak about Motion 12. Dear Councilwoman Yarosky and fellow council members, my name is Mei Song. I'm an immigrant. 20 years ago, I thought I achieved the American dream when we moved into the cheapest house in Pacific Palisades so that our kids could walk to school and also live their dreams. 9 months ago today, that dream burned down live on CNN. I'm here not just as a homeowner, but also as an architect. My clients and neighbors will appreciate your help in waiving all rebuilding fees. Many are struggling just to go home, and I've been building in the Palisades for over 20 years. I know the process, and I know there are numerous obstacles that are ahead that will cost more money during construction, and this is just exacerbated by the political situation today. Everyone has a budget, especially when it's a construction process that nobody asked for. All we want to do is be able to go home and be able to afford a bed to sleep in and a chair to sit on. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jill Smith. I lost my home in the Palisades. I just have a general question I don't know if this is appropriate, but it looks like not all the council members are here. So I'm just curious.
This is a committee meeting, so there's 5 of us on this committee. This is the
I
Budget
see.
and Finance Committee.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
We're all here.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that all the city council members could hear what I had to say, and I really urge you to please vote yes to waive these building fees. My husband and I lost everything we owned. We're not young anymore, so it's really difficult to try and build back. We're doing everything we're supposed to do, but it's really difficult, and I feel like people think that the Palisades is just all wealthy white people. I happen to be a white person, but I'm not wealthy, and like a lot of people have said, it's a mixed community. There are so many senior citizens who've lost their homes who would love to come back, and I just urge you to do what you can to help all of us. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Julia Gandelsman. I also lost my house along with all of my neighbors in the Palisades fire. Just around me, there are 4 neighbors in their 70s and their 80s who've lived there for a long time and are struggling to get back. We loved our community. We loved living there. We paid taxes. We enjoyed it. Unfortunately, we didn't have the resources to fight the fire when it came, and people lost everything, and they're really struggling. So I'm here to support the motion to waive the building and permitting fees. Any help in this process would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your consideration.
Good afternoon to members of the council, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Steve Danton. I'm a second-generation resident of Los Angeles. I'm a resident of the Pacific Palisades for 25 years. My wife, Dara, and I raised 2 kids there, and this was our forever home that burned down. This was supposed to be passed to our children and the children of their children. Even though there's no home standing there now, it's still our home. Palisades Fire was not part of my life plan. I don't think it's part of anyone's plan to have your community destroyed, your home taken away from you, along with any sense of safety and security for yourself and your family, all lost and burned to the ground in a matter of hours. We did not plan to rebuild our home right now. So we are facing the monumental task of that now. The whole community, which I've called home for all these many years. Permit fee relief is being put to a vote by the City Council. And frankly, I'm not sure why this is even being debated. I ask you to please personalize this. How would you respond if this was your district, your community, your neighborhood, your home in ashes by a catastrophic event that you had no real part in making it on that day? You would be an advocate. You'd be a voice for seniors, the underinsured, the multi-generational families on fixed income, those who do not have the mental capacity to endure the loss and challenges associated with the rebuilding process. If we had planned on building, in other words, if our community hadn't burned to the ground, I wouldn't be complaining, frankly, because I know that was part of the cost of doing business. But as so many of the speakers have said before me, many of us are underinsured, not insured at all. We all just want to desperately return to our homes. I strongly encourage the City Council and the rest of the City of Los Angeles leadership to understand that we are not all movie stars. We're not all millionaires. The waiving of all permit fees, including fees from the DWP to restore power and utilities to our devastated neighborhoods, is a start. Not a gesture, but actionable assistance. This should not be political. I urge you all to show solidarity with the Palisades, who are citizens of the City of Los Angeles who've lost everything and are only trying to get back into their homes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Nagel, and I'm a past and future resident of Pacific Palisades. The January wildfires and the unprecedented challenges of rebuilding on a mass scale would be daunting at any time. However, the current uncertainties surrounding the construction labor force and the impact of tariffs on materials prices means the cost of building will be much higher than anticipated. These higher costs will inevitably result in a significant upsurge of sales tax revenue to the city. Given that, it would be a meaningful step on the part of the city to grant a measure of relief to wildfire victims by waiving permit fees. Every little bit will help and will be immeasurably appreciated. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Justin Skaggs. I'm a dry utility consultant, and I have worked in projects in each of your jurisdictions, and I am very familiar with how projects are billed and fees are applied. So I just wanted to comment first on the way that bills and fees for LADWP are applied. They're applied at the tail end of a project, and they are based on costs that are completely out of the project's control, especially for homeowners in the Palisades who we can't do any of the actual designing, we can't do any of the utility construction. We are dependent on the departments to staff up and get those jobs done in a timely manner. When you have engineers changing in the middle of a project, all of those additional labor costs and all those delays get put onto the homeowners. Okay, so the way that fees are structured, they're based on non-construction labor, construction labor, and material and equipment costs where we don't even get to see an itemization. My specific requests are waiving the easement quitclaim fee of $6,422, waiving the up and down fees for temporary power, waiving all street damage restoration fees for trenching in residential streets, especially when we don't have control over when that trenching is done, waiving any pole removal fees, especially on properties that don't have recorded easements, any design deposit fees for underground conversions, and any CIAC fees for telecom companies to actually underground poles. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking on general public comment and agenda item number 13. Good afternoon. I'm Trinity Tran with Public Bank LA, and we know the city has faced a really tough budget deficit year and continues to struggle with the budget while trying to pay for essential needs. And whether it's the $3 billion convention center upgrade or rebuilding from the wildfires, when the city borrows money, that's interest and fees paid to commercial private banks that drains critically needed funds out of our communities. But there's a better way to fully fund the public bank feasibility study. We thank 9 city council members who have taken the leadership to support the public bank feasibility study, including 3 council members here on this committee, Councilmember Hernandez, Blumenfield, and Hutt. Thank you for your leadership. This creates a roadmap for the city to leverage its own balance sheets to fund city needs without having to cut essential services or borrow increased debt or raise taxes. So there is a phased pathway that allows the city to create a permanent pool of capital so that it can be able to lend out and have that money come back into our communities. And that's something that we'd like to discuss in further details with the members of this committee. So this really is a common sense solution. We're talking about $300,000 in a city with a budget of billions for it to figure out how to create a plan that will leverage its balance sheets to fund city needs without having to deal with cutting essential services or furloughing jobs year after year. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name's Daniel Aronson. I'm a proud Palisadian. I too and my family lost their homes in the fires. The fires, destroyed our lives, our community, and so much more. That's why I'm here to, or the city, let me just, hold on. The city did respond quickly, and I want to thank Councilperson Park and Supervisor Horwath for that because they kept us sane, right? That said, I'm here because of I'm here because one of our officials said that to recover that the community for the community to recover, the permitting fees will be deferred. I mean delayed, not deferred, but delayed. I mean, okay. We counted on that and we trusted that. That official was Mayor Bass. We all want to rebuild, but most of us are still fighting with our insurance companies. There is just not enough money. Now that the city is considering backtracking on what Mayor Bass proposed, that's just wrong. So I'm asking you to live up to the commitment and waive, not defer, but waive the permitting fees. By doing so, that will quicken the rebuild in the Palisades. And by doing so, the city will once again begin to collect property taxes sooner than later. The more homes that are rebuilt, the more money the city takes in property taxes. And let me repeat that. The sooner the homes are rebuilt, the sooner you guys collect the property taxes. Further, many people that lived in hillsides or close to mountains are afraid to move back. Many have sold their homes for huge losses and want to rebuild in the flats. Those people should also have their permitting fees waived, not deferred, but waived, right? Regardless if it's a different parcel. So let's just do the right thing and please waive the fees.
Bart Young, thank you for allowing me to come back for my second minute. This is on the Climate Resilient District as proposed by Councilwoman Park, and I'm asking you to approve it. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we have a major infrastructure problem. It's at least where I live in Castle Amar, which is the far west district, with sewer eroding over many, many decades. We've had water running below our house, caused 3 landslides in the last 28 years since I've lived there. And while I'm devastated that we lost our home of 28 years, I am frankly more concerned about the infrastructure of our whole neighborhood. And so I'm asking you to approve that CRD. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you to everyone who came for public comment. I see no more speakers in the queue. We're going to now close public comment for these items. We're ready to vote, colleagues, on the consent items, which are 2 through 6, 8 through 10, and 14 through 16. I move approval of those items with the following instructions. Item 2, approve the Office of Finance's recommendations. Item 3, concur with the Public Safety Committee and approve this item as amended. Items 4 and 5, concur with the Public Safety Committee. Item 6, concur with the Energy and Environment Committee and approve the CAO's recommendations. Item 8, concur with the Arts, Parks, Libraries, and Community Enrichment Committee. Item 9, concur with the Arts, Parks, Libraries, and Community Enrichment Committee. Item 10, approve the Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety's recommendation. Items 14 and 15, approve the motions. Item 16, concur with the Arts, Parks, Libraries, and Community Enrichment Committee. Ms. Morales, would you please call the roll to tally the votes?
Yaroslavsky.
Yes.
Blumenfield.
Aye.
Hutt.
Aye.
McCosker.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
5 ayes. These items are approved as stated by the chair.
Thank you very much. We're going to now start with item 12, then we're going to move to 11, and then 13, and come back and take the 2 additional items that were pulled from consent. So starting with item 12, I'd like to welcome up our City Administrative Officer, Matt Szabo, and Andy Galan from the CAO to the table to present. I'd also like to ask the staff from the Department of Building and Safety, Ms. Anna Mae Utan, to come up to the table as well for questions, please. Mr. Wexler, in the meantime, would you please read the item?
Item 12. Item 12, City Attorney Report, City Administrative Officer Report, and ordinance relative to adding Section 98.0419.1 to the Los Angeles Municipal Code to waive fees imposed in connection with permits to repair or rebuild buildings or structures damaged or destroyed by the January 2025 wildfires, and feasibility of waiving plan check and permit fees associated with the reconstruction of private property damaged in the January 2025 wildfires.
Thank you very much. Can we just get a very brief presentation?
Sure. I will be very brief. As outlined in our reports, what you have before you is a consideration of an ordinance to waive plan check and permit fees for reconstruction in the Palisades area. We issued a report on May 7th that had an initial cost estimate, potential cost estimate of $86 million. We issued a report last week that is based on the ordinance that's in front of you with a considerably higher potential cost estimate. That estimate is $278 million. The difference between the initial cost estimate and the cost estimate in the report before you is that the $86 million was estimating costs based on waiving fees from the Department of Building and Safety, based on the waivers, or rather the suspension of fees as outlined in the mayor's emergency executive order. So we were only looking at the eligible projects as defined by those in the mayor's emergency executive order. Subsequent to the emergency executive order, the draft of the ordinance which is before you, expanded upon the emergency executive order. It included fee waivers. It expanded the square footage to 150%, up to 110%. It included ADUs, it included grading, it included swimming pools, retaining walls, and it also includes fee waivers from several other departments, including BOE, sanitation, street services, planning, and housing. As is outlined in the report, under Prop 218, we are required when we have a fee-based service, when we're charging a fee for service, if there's a reduction or a waiver, elimination, or other program, we are required to cover those costs with unrestricted funds. In this case, it would be the general fund. Earlier today, for example, the council adopted a new structure for the solid waste fee. As part of that, there is a low-income program, which is a general fund obligation, because we are not allowed to reduce fees for one group, any subset, using the fee revenue that is paid by others. So this would be a general fund obligation of up to $278 million. I will end there and open it for questions, if there's anything that Building Safety would like to say.
Okay. I actually have a couple of questions, and then I'll turn it over to colleagues. This is a question for DBS. Could you please detail what the process is for waiving fees for each homeowner? How is the department verifying who owns the home and that they owned it as of the date of the fire?
Okay, so for the criteria for suspending the fees.
I'm sorry, can you bring that mic super close?
Okay. Can
Thank
you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So the criteria for us for suspending the fees, the owner has to be own the property at the time of the fire, and the permit is for repair and reconstruction. The way we verify if the owner is, if the person that's applying for the permit or the plan check fees is the owner, we ask for a notarized affidavit as well as a copy of the deed.
Okay. And how are you tracking what types of projects are being filed?
Right now, there is really no way for us to track. It's just based on the fees that were suspended. So as of October 7, 2025, we have a total of 1,086 permits that were suspended. Those are for 692 unique addresses. A portion of that is like 49% of the permit are for single-family dwelling, which is about 527. The second part would be for grading permits, which is about 200. Accessory dwelling unit, which is about 23 addresses. Pool and spa, which is about 21 permits, and retaining wall, which is about 38, and the rest are for other miscellaneous fees.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple questions for the CAO, and then I'll turn it over to the rest of the committee. Mr. Szabo, I'd like to understand how this is going to continue to impact our general fund going forward. We know that rebuilding isn't going to all happen at once in the next fiscal year alone or in this fiscal year. How many projects are being filed for rebuilding this year, and how many projects do we have any way of knowing or getting some sense of how many are going to be filed next year and the year after?
Sure. So it's hard to estimate what the annual impact would be. I do need to stress the 278 million. Excuse me. The 278 million is an assumption of the maxed out. If all of the properties went to 150%, and there were components as indicated in the report for all of the rebuilding. As my colleague from Building and Safety had just stated, there are 692 unique addresses that have filed thus far. The report gave you the cost estimate for the first 566, which was $3.7 million. We certainly expect there to be a rapidly increasing number of permits over the next year, but it is hard to estimate how much the general fund would be on the hook. It would be safe to look at this as a 2 to 5 year issue, which we'd have to deal with. We would expect the bulk of the permits would likely be pulled in that. It would possibly be longer, but I think we would be faced with the general fund obligation in the next 5 years.
Okay. Will we have the flexibility to adjust these waivers in future years? For example, if our financial outlook gets substantially worse 2 years out? Or are we tying future hands with this? I assume we can come back if we need to, if things are really bad in 28, 29, for example.
So this would be a question for the city attorney. The ordinance as presented does not provide that option. It would, I would imagine there could be a time limitations that could be applied. But again, those would be questions for the city attorney.
Okay, and I guess one more question for DBS. My understanding is that the departments are using the Palisades rebuild as sort of a pilot for streamlining and expediting approvals. I'm wondering if there's a way that we can make the actual staffing impacts and costs and time of staff time less through things like self-certification, third-party certification, things like that, so that we are waiving the fees, but our costs associated with doing that work are lessened.
Yes, we do have a pilot program for self-certification, and we've been promoting it on our website. Fortunately, we haven't had that much applications received, so.
Why is it an option? I mean, like, if we're going to eat these costs, which we're going to get into more, sort of what it means when you waive fees in terms of our impact to the general fund, but it seems like now is the time for us to try to do things more efficiently as departments, to do it quicker, to do it cheaper, rely more on contractors self-certifying rather than having inspectors go out and do the work that we normally do, which is very robust, very lengthy in time, very staff intensive, if we're going to be eating those costs, right?
It is. However, it depends on how many of those applicants do submit an application to self-certify. And at the moment, we don't have that many applicants, unfortunately.
Okay, I guess my question is more of a rhetorical one. Why make it optional to self-certify and just say, this is the path if you want the fees waived? This is the process. We're making it faster. We're making it easier. We're making it free. And that means that we're not spending all of our staff time that we aren't getting reimbursed. This is a conversation we can have offline with the GM, I think, about how we use staff time on this rebuild. Yes, Councilmember Blumenfield.
Okay, no, I was agreeing with you. I mean, we need to go do those kinds of things. We need to figure out every tool we can to lower the overall costs. The whole idea, calling this a fee waiver really is a misnomer as we talk about with Prop 218. As you're pointing out, let's call it what it is. And I mean, I'm open to doing this, but it is a subsidy. We are asking the city to, the taxpayers for the rest of the city to pay for these fees because we cannot waive fees, we have to pay them. Now, in the past, like in this last budget, when we were talking about a $300 million, hole, that was presented to us as 3,000 jobs. So if we were to pay $270 million, I'm assuming that means, 2,700 city jobs we would have to eliminate in order to pay for that. Is that correct? I mean, how would we pay for this in terms of, like, if you could put this in terms of, would it be less cops, less firefighters, less street pavements? Who would make that decision in terms of how we pay for these fees?
If the ordinance is adopted, it would become an obligation. It wouldn't be a choice. Whatever fees, whatever permits under this fee waiver ordinance would be pulled and work done on those permits, we would have an obligation to reimburse the enterprise fund. For the general fund would have an obligation. So it would, we would look at it like whatever our liability claims are that year. We don't have an option. We will have to pay it. But as I said, I can't give you
I'm just trying to put it in stark terms so we all eyes wide open. I mean, I'm trying to figure out a way to go about doing this, but I don't want us to sugarcoat this. We're not waiving fees. We are paying for this out of our budget. We are not hiring firefighters, cops, or not paving streets in this city if we choose to instead spend that money on the permit fees for this rebuilding. Now, we had a tragic situation, and I think it makes sense for us to pay for some of that. But I don't want us to sugarcoat it and talk about waiving fees as if it's free. It's not. This is real money that's coming in a city budget that has been starved, in which case we were talking about laying off people in this last round of hearings, and we're going to be, especially with the convention center and everything else, we're going to be having fewer people work in the city. We're not going to be able to do our basic services. From the last discussion we had in the convention center, we basically said there's not a chance that we're going to be able to even restore services. But we pay for this. We're talking about a further reduction in city services. Eyes wide open. In my district, in the West Valley, we are going to get less services, less streets, and everything else. Now, we need to have our eyes wide open and figure out that. And so at the very least, I don't think we should be going beyond what the mayor's executive directive was. And to be clear, and I know people talked about honoring the commitment, this council is the only one that can decide whether we waive fees or not. So while I want to move forward and try to figure out how to subsidize some of those fees, we're under no obligation, if the mayor said to do something or not to do something, that's their right and her right in the executive directive, but we have the responsibility to make that decision based on the city budget. So I guess at the very least, I don't think we should be going beyond the executive directive. And the way that this is written, as I understand it, goes well beyond the executive directive. So what I would propose, at the very least, is that we instruct the city attorney to revise the draft ordinance dated June 20th to align the ordinance with the mayor's executive directive, ordinance number 8, dated April 25th, 2025, to waive all building fees associated with the repair or reconstruction of single-family structures and duplexes damaged or destroyed, and I would add up to 110% of the original structure as a result of the January 2025 fires. That would stay true to her directive as opposed to what is written on the page, which is going well beyond that to all sorts of other structures. So that's sort of at the very least. And I added the part about 110% because it's one thing to waive the fee to get someone back to even. It's another thing to waive the fee to get somebody to 200% of what they had before. So I think that is a very reasonable assumption. And even if we do that, as I understand it, it will cost us $80 million to do that. Is that correct?
Yes, our estimate for the waivers in the mayor's emergency order was $86 million.
So even if we do that, a conservative number would be $86 million, which, you know, how many city jobs is that? 860 jobs, approximately. I mean, I don't mean to ask you rhetorical questions, but it is a lot. So I want to put that forward as, at the very least, that we don't go beyond the mayor's executive directive, that we limit it to that. And then I had a question. You know, there's this. One of our colleagues, Councilman Park, was talking about impact fees versus building fees. Is there a way to parse that? And how would that work? You know, if it's one thing to waive, you know, and are they different in terms of the amount that has to be reimbursed?
Yes, so the impact fees would be the linkage fee as well as the arts development fees. So we do have a breakdown of those fees. So if you do waive those fees, then we just don't use it as, you include that in the calculation of the permit and plan check fees.
So the building fees have to be reimbursed.
That is correct.
And the impact fees don't have to be reimbursed. The impact fees basically go to pay for things like parks and other arts and other things. But they don't, it's not as direct of an investment, correct? So if we were to parse that out, how much would it be if we parsed it out and said, you know, waive impact fees but not building fees? Do we have those? In fact, let me make an instruction to the CAO to report with a breakdown of the cost estimate, including the specific fees that we're anticipating waiving or not waiving, and the estimates for each amount. So to get a chart like that, I think would be very helpful.
We'll certainly provide that. I think Andy can give you a rough estimate.
Yeah, so impact fees do include exemptions for repair and rebuild projects.
For what?
For repair and rebuild projects.
Okay.
As the scale of these projects increases, you essentially lose that exemption. So for the larger projects, generally 30% and higher of scale increase, you would set off the impact fee, fiscal impact. Generally, it wouldn't be a substantial impact within the universe of our fiscal impact estimate. It would be generally about $2 million.
I didn't quite follow that.
We'll report, we'll give you the table that will break it all out.
I believe what he was stating is like what currently was suspended as of October 7. The impact fees is about 1.9 million. So those are for the arts and the linkage fee. So I think that's where the 2 million comes from.
Right, which is a much smaller, so the major
Which is
fees
like-
are,
Yes, right now, the total suspended fee is about 6.3 million. 2.5 is for the permit and the plan check fees. That goes to the enterprise fund, as well as the other departments, such as the, building and planning. And then the impact fees, which is the linkage fees that goes to the housing, and the arts development fee, which goes to cultural affairs, is about 1.9 million.
okay, so just doing, I mean, we'll have to look at it, but just doing the math, you're saying impact fees are about 20%, and the remainder, it sounds like it's about 80%.
Yeah, it would
Okay.
be, again, like Andy said, it will be dependent on how big the structure is, because it affects it when you increase the square footage.
I got you. I was just trying to think, so if we had waived the impact fees and not the building safety fees, that actually doesn't do so much for folks. It only gives 20% of the fees versus the 80%.
That is correct.
Okay, I have some additional questions, but I'll come back.
Okay. Councilwoman Hutt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. I have a question about title deeds. One of the answers you had was that we verify ownership if they had ownership the day of the fire, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so in many cases, the owner died, the children live there, they don't have the same name, they're not on the deed, but they lived there at the time of the fire. And maybe they didn't do it because they didn't want to do inheritance, maybe they were sick, all those things. How do they qualify to get waived? Because they're not a new buyer, not a new owner.
I have to get back to you on that question, madam, because we haven't encountered that kind of situation. So I have to go back to our plan checkers.
I would love to have that answer, Madam Chair. It goes along with your verify the deed question. Thank you.
Colleagues, more questions?
Yeah, I
Mr.
do have a
McCosker.
couple.
And
Thank
then
you very much,
Councilman
Madam
Lee.
Chair. Going back to the chair's hypothetical, which is a good one, of using the faster, lower personnel intensity processes like self-certifications, wouldn't that mean that the fees, should they have been charged, would be lower? Well, actually, that's not even a question. If we really are following 218 and we have a process that is less expensive, that requires fewer person hours and is a self-certification, it will be a lower fee. Is there any way to put ourselves in a position where we are looking at that fee structure, waiving that fee structure, following the law and paying ourselves back with interest? And wouldn't we be able to reduce our costs and still put the property owners maybe even a better position, because we'd move a little faster and we would be waiving a fee that's lower, and they don't care, they just want to get their permits and get going?
Yes, it would be. So the way we would charge the fees or the permit fees is based on hourly rate, right? If they do a self-certification, because even if they do self-certification, our plan checkers still need to check those plans to make sure that all the codes are addressed.
you see what I'm asking though, right?
Yes.
If we are careful with our hours, we are doing a service to these folks who lost their properties in the fire. We're moving faster, and we are also not harming ourselves on a waiver for a single-family home or a duplex. We're actually reducing the cost of a permit that goes over the counter that we know that we're going to have to take from sidewalks, streets, curbs, and gutters through the rest of the city, which I think we're willing to do, but why don't we reduce the costs to ourselves? Rhetorical question. The next question is, this number, whether it's $250 million or 86 million, seems to imply that all of this will happen in one fiscal year and that all of the fees will be waived and all the fees will be paid back. What is our burn rate for the number, whether it's 86 million or $250 million? Because if it's over a term of years, it feels different. Because over a term of years, people will be pulling building permits, getting waivers, and over a term of years, we'll be paying ourselves back. And while I know it's not great to kick the can down the road, at whatever our rate of borrowing from ourselves is, it might make sense for us to stretch these payments out over time.
Correct, and unless the council were to place a time limitation on the waiver, it would certainly stretch out over several fiscal years. And again, the number that we have, the 278, suggests, takes into account all of the properties and the work that would need to be done on the green, yellow, and red tagged properties. The question is, so for example, the burn rate, you've asked for the burn rate in the report. The numbers aren't as up to date as what Building and Safety just reported, but as of those which were suspended, it's 3.7 million. I believe we're up to about 6 million now so far of fees that have been waived. We do expect that to increase rapidly as the construction starts, but it would certainly stretch over several fiscal years.
Does the over $250 million number include everybody rebuilding at 150%?
Yes.
So if folks are building at 150%, they're not only, which is not likely that everyone builds at 150%, but it goes back to this impact. Oh, does that number also include waiver of impact fees? Yes, it does.
Yes.
So to unpack that impact fee issue, if you build at 100% or 110%, you are generally exempt from impact fees. And if you build at 150%, you're going to be paying an impact fee because you are, one, in a normal situation, one is going to be paying an impact fee because that 50% actually provides an additional impact to the neighborhood, whether it's a park or a school or street lighting or whatever. So you realize how this number begins building on itself. It is unlikely that we're going to have 100% participation. It's also unlikely we're going to have 100% of folks at 150%, and it also, you add on that impact fee. If we make an assumption or following the recommendation, have the waiver be at 110%, we're not only reducing the fee, we're also significantly reducing the impact fee waiver, which doesn't have to be repaid. It's just we forego the impact. But actually, I would argue that if one neighbor builds at 110% or 100%, they are not having an impact. If the next neighbor builds at 200%, they are having an impact. It works in unfairness if we waive an impact fee on someone who has the ability to build at 200% and the person who builds at 100% is bearing the burden of the impacts without that fee being paid. So I don't know that it logically makes sense to waive an impact fee, although it does make a lot of sense to waive duplex and single-family home fees if they're being rebuilt essentially in kind or close to it. Did everything I say, what did I miss? You're giving me a look like I'm saying something that's illogical.
No, nothing illogical. It's just that would require some additional options coming back to you because the item that's before you is everything up to 150.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Hernandez.
Thank you so much for being here today. I have a question. These fees typically fund the staff that process them. What options are there to supplement this to ensure that the permits can still be processed?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
The fees that we collect, don't they usually fund the staff that processes them?
That is correct.
What options are there to supplement this to ensure that the permits can still be processed if we don't have those fees?
Right now, they are being processed by staff, they're being checked. It's just that we are not collecting the fees for it. We're waiting to be reimbursed somehow by the general fund.
Yeah, council member, it's the general fund. I mean, it's the general fund, that's the only available option, but that's also the option that's required by law. We couldn't take other special funds and divert them to pay building and safety fees. It would have to be unrestricted funds, and that really means general fund.
Thank you. I want to get a better idea of when these fees are generally paid during the construction timeline, so we know over what period of time the permit fees hit the general fund in typical circumstances. Although the draft ordinance goes through January 7, 2027, what period of time should we expect that these fees would typically come in?
Usually it takes a long time, right? It depends on the homeowner. They would, for example, for this coming fiscal year, calendar year 2026, there will be an increase in fees because of the codes. So most homeowners would try to get the lower fee, so they would apply for a permit or a plan check fee before January 2026. So, but that doesn't mean that they will actually build within the 2-month period from now to like December. It may take time because it's just, again, they're taking advantage of the lower fee. So it's really, we can't really gauge when it will be a big impact on the general fund where they have to pay the enterprise fund right away. It just depends on, because right now we need the 6 million. Right, so it needs to be paid. So it could be like in 2026, the next 6 months, that 6 million could increase to 30 or 35 million. Again, it's dependent on the homeowner, whether they want to take advantage of a lower fee before January 2026, when the fee increase.
Thank you. Matt, do you have, thank you for sharing that. Is there a years range that you have? I've heard up to 5 years.
No, that was a, I would anticipate that the majority of the fees that we would need to pay, back would be incurred, would be waived, and thus the costs incurred in the next 5 years. But there's really no way to really assess that. We would have to pay the funds back. We would have to pay the funds back with interest. So to the extent that if there were a long-term deferral, for example, we would still have to pay those back with interest. So if we wanted to take this obligation and spread it out, we could come back with you for options on that. It just would have interest costs, borrowing costs associated with a longer-term payback.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Councilmember Bloomfield.
Thank you. And it's currently, it's limited to existing owners, right? Not if somebody buys the property and develops it, they do not get the waiver. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. And then the other thing, people were talking about DWP fees. Do we even have the power to waive the DWP fees, or that's completely separate?
That's separate. We're not, the reports don't contemplate that. And it's the same situation. We would be under the same situation if we're not able to give fee waivers or rate reductions for one ratepayer at the expense of the other. That would have to be supported by the general fund.
I get that. So I just wanted to put that out because I heard a lot of people talking about it, and those are probably some of the most painful fees, but they're not even part of this. And then the other question is, what about if we wanted to have some sort of cost protection on the subsidies that we're doing, because we're talking about how much are we going to pay out of our general fund? Is there a way to cap the annual cost, reduction to the rest of our city services?
If that's the instruction, we certainly can come back to you with options. As I said to Councilmember Hernandez, we could structure a payment plan where we could, and this may make the most sense, if we went, for example, with the option that you recommended, we could have an up to amount that the general fund would pay over a set number of years. We would just have to understand that would incur interest costs, depending on how much work is done in each year, if it exceeded the amount we paid.
You're saying we'd basically be borrowing essentially to pay. The cost cap wouldn't affect the people applying for the fees. It would affect our repayment essentially. We'd be borrowing for some of that money. Is that what you're saying?
We could structure, so essentially we're borrowing. When I say borrowing, I'm sorry, we would be borrowing against the enterprise fund.
Right.
Because the enterprise fund would pay for the work that would need to be reimbursed by the general fund. I'm sure we could work out a payment schedule with the departments. We just need to be mindful, and we can provide these options to you depending on how you choose to proceed, on how it would be best to structure the repayment.
Great. So I guess that would be the third thing, although maybe my colleagues have already asked for it, that I would ask for, which would be to get a report on possible, annual caps and a repayment schedule and how that would look.
I would, excuse me, council member, I would caution though, in terms of borrowing from the enterprise fund right now, we are looking at about a 30 million lower revenue this fiscal year. As it is, we already have for the past 3 fiscal year, 31 million. Our expenditure is at 211, the average for the last 4 fiscal years, but our revenue is at 165 million. So there's already a lower than expected revenue, so.
Yeah, to be clear, when I say borrow, what I'm talking about is there has been work that's been done since the fees have been suspended, and that work has a value of about $6 million. That money needs to come back to the fund. That's what I mean by borrowing. The work is being done. The work is being paid for. It is an obligation of the general fund that we do need to pay back. So that's what I mean by structuring.
I get that, and I heed your warning that our enterprise funds are not in that great shape, but I also would respond with our general fund is in even worse shape. So it's sort of you pick your poison, I guess.
Okay, anything else, colleagues? Okay, so I just want to take one quick second to echo what Mr. Blumenfield said and be really clear on the purpose of permit fees. Under normal circumstances, these fees cover the time and effort city staff spends to review and process permits. They're not a source of profit for the city. We don't use these fees to cover other services performed by the city. They simply ensure that the city breaks even for the work performed by LADBS staff on private development projects. Obviously, these are not normal circumstances. People are trying to rebuild their lives after the worst natural disaster in history, in LA's history, and no one wants to make that process harder or more expensive than it already is. That being said, the cost of waiving these fees to our budget is real. It means the city's going to lose revenue that it would otherwise use to pay for staff time. The cost doesn't go away, it just shifts, as we've said, to the general fund, which is already responsible for funding almost every service in the city. So in effect, we're going to be spending money out of the general fund to pay for this. We know that budgeting is in some respects a zero-sum game. So like Councilmember Blumenfield said earlier, dollars we spend here will not be available down the line for things like police officers and the fire department. That's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It is just the reality of budgeting in this moment. So it's about setting priorities and expectations. At the same time, we're facing what could be a significant financial impact. We should look at every option to minimize the hit to the general fund. Programs like third-party review and certification can and should help move applications faster while reducing strain on city resources. We need to use every available tool to keep the process efficient and limit the burden on the city's budget. My understanding is that the Ad Hoc Recovery Committee requested a supplemental report from the CAO back in June that would have answered many of the questions we still have about how these fee waivers will be implemented and tracked. That report hasn't been added to the council file. My expectation is that the CAO's office will complete that report as soon as possible so we can hear it back in this committee without further delay. I'd like to add a provision to that report back to advise us on whether this fee waiver can be time limited to something like 4 or 5 years. This seems like a potentially reasonable window of time during which homeowners will decide whether they want to rebuild. That said, I'm not going to ask families who are waiting to rebuild their homes to wait any longer. I recommend we move forward with Councilmember Blumenfield's proposal and advance this to the full council as proposed by Councilmember Blumenfield, while continuing to work to ensure the outstanding questions are addressed and that we do this responsibly. Colleagues, any other questions? Councilmember Blumenfield, could you please restate your amendment for our consideration?
Sure. It was to instruct the city attorney to revise the draft ordinance dated June 20, 2025, to align the ordinance with the mayor's executive order dated November 7, dated April 25, 2025, to waive all building permit fees associated with repair or reconstruction of single-family structures and duplexes damaged or destroyed up to 110% of the original structure as a result of the January 2025 wildfires. And then secondly, to instruct the CAO to report with a breakdown of the cost estimate, including the specific fees waived or not waived and the estimated amount for each. And then, I don't know exactly how we framed it, but the third one was about the report back on the payment structures and how that could be limited or predictable on an annual basis. And then I think you had one additional one that you just mentioned.
Right. Add a provision in the report back on whether this fee waiver could be time limited to 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'll point out, we have, ideally, if we could get the fees lower, that benefits everybody. I have a motion about using AI in terms of some of these fees, which could really lower the impact. But it hasn't been proved out yet. But my hope is that some of these things, self-certification, AI, and some other stuff, could really lower the fees and be a win-win for everyone. But we can't wait on that to move forward on all of this. So those are the amendments as proposed.
Okay, thank you. So I'll second that amendment. We also need to move to approve recommendations 1B through E in the May 7th CAO report and October 2nd report. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Colleagues, anything else to add to that? Or Madam Clerk, can we call the roll?
And so just to confirm, you will be also approving the ordinance, but also requesting a new ordinance be drafted to align with the mayor's directive?
No, it's amended, an amending.
Okay.
We're instructing the city attorney to revise the draft ordinance that was dated June 20th, to align it with the mayor's executive order. So we're not doing two, this is just one.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Yaroslavsky?
Yes.
Councilmember Blumenfield?
Blumenfield, aye.
Oh, Scott, sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dunn. Is exactly what you said, but I want to make sure it's clear for the record, which is the instruction is to, because the current draft ordinance that's on file is tied to the mayor's revised version of the executive order, and you're instructing us to draft an ordinance to go back to the April dated executive order, which is the single-family homes 110%. So it's just because there's two versions of the order, when you just said just now,
Yeah.
to make it consistent, I want to make sure you're saying the original version of the EO.
Yes,
Yeah,
the one that was dated
April.
April 25, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, sorry.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. Yaroslavsky?
Yes.
Blumenfield?
Blumenfield, aye.
Hutt?
Aye.
McCosker?
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes.
5 ayes, this item is approved as amended as stated by the chair and co-chair.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to move now to item 11. I'd like to welcome up Blair Miller from Economic Workforce Development Department to present. Mr. Wexler, would you please read the item?
Item 11, Economic and Workforce Development Department report relative to the feasibility of creating a climate resilience district for the directly impacted and adjacent areas of the Pacific Palisades fire and identifying funding for a feasibility study. Item is referred to the Ad Hoc Committee on LA Recovery and Budget Finance Committee.
Thank you. Ms. Miller, would you please give us a brief presentation of the report before us?
I'd like to start with Fred Jackson, Acting General Manager of EWD.
Can you bring that mic much closer?
I'd like to invite Fred Jackson, Acting General Manager of EWD, to introduce us.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. I'm Fred Jackson, Acting General Manager of the Economic and Workforce Development Department. I'm here today with my colleagues and team members, Blair Miller and Jeff Lewis of our real estate group. We've been asked to evaluate the potential of implementing a climate resilient district in the Palisades. Our team will present summary findings along with key information regarding pending state legislation that may offer opportunities for the city.
Thank you, Fred, and good afternoon, committee members. Climate resilience districts are a type of enhanced infrastructure financing district used to fund and implement projects that address climate change impacts, including wildfires, flooding, sea level rise, extreme heat, and severe weather. EIFDs were created to provide alternative financing tools after the elimination of the redevelopment agencies. About 20 have been adopted statewide in the 11 years since they were introduced. CRDs do not create a new tax, and they primarily use tax increment financing, which captures a share of property tax revenue growth above a base year value. While base year revenue remains with the general fund, typically 25 to 50% of the increment is allocated to the CRD, with the remainder continuing to support the general fund. A key benefit of any tax increment financing tool is the potential for county participation, which can double available tax increment for climate investments and also redirect county funds into the city. City council must authorize formal negotiations before any agreement with the county could proceed. Following the January Palisades fire, the county assessor reduced assessed values to land only for properties with destroyed structures. As rebuilding occurs, rising assessments are expected to generate significant tax increment, creating an opportunity for CRD financing that would exceed a typical EIFD.
Hold on a second. I'm going to pause, Jeff, there. There's two more topics we could speak to. One is how a CRD is different from an EIFD, and the other is how the pending legislation will affect CRDs. Would you like us to go to those?
Sure, very briefly.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, so there are two pending items which may significantly influence the implementation of CRDs within the city of LA. The first is council has directed staff to update its EIFD policy, Council File 23-1107, to reflect new legislation and best practices, which may impact how future CRDs and EIFDs are evaluated and implemented. The effort is being led by the city administrative officer with support from the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst, EWDD, and also the City Attorney's Office. While the updated policy is expected soon, the timeline remains uncertain. And the second item is SB 782, a proposed state law that would significantly revise CRD formation and implementation. So the bill passed both the State Assembly and the Senate, and it's on the governor's desk. So SB 72 would create a subcategory of climate resilience district known as a disaster recovery district, which is tailored for disaster-stricken areas. We believe it was specifically written for the Palisades and Eden fire areas. So a disaster recovery district would maintain all the existing CRD powers, but with adjusted formation and project use rules, which will result in shorter timelines and direct oversight by the city. It also expands the eligible uses to include acquisition, demolition, and restoration of damaged structures, including privately owned structures. And it specifically allows investment in private property recovery in addition to public infrastructure. Sure. And just to cover some of the differences between CRDs and the more commonly known EIFD, or Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, CRDs can spend tax increment as it accrues or leverage it through bonds and loans. Unlike EIFDs, however, CRDs may also levy special taxes, assessments, and fees, which is subject to voter approval, and can pursue state, federal, and other public or private funding sources. Unlike traditional tax increment financing districts that drive property value growth, CRDs aim to prevent value loss through climate resilience investments that reduce risk, enhance insurability, and support long-term private investment. CRDs can fund capital projects and associated maintenance and operating expenses for those projects as well, as long as those projects address climate change mitigation, adaptation, or resilience. Before forming a CID, the city's EIFD policy requires a preliminary assessment by city staff. Once that is completed, council is able to authorize a consultant-led feasibility study, and those feasibility studies typically cost around $250,000. Of that, it would typically be $150,000 for a tax increment analysis and an additional $100,000 for outreach. But this concludes our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Just a couple questions. How would this climate resilience district impact revenue to the general fund?
It's not clear. So it would reduce revenue to the general fund by some amount, and the recommendation before you is for EWD to confirm that this is a viable process, and then for the city to invest in a consultant, which is how these are typically the start of a formation of an EIFD, or CRD is typically started with a consultant study that looks at the potential geographic boundaries and the amount of increment that would be dedicated to the tax increment fund, or the CRD in this case. And there's a lot of different variables that would affect how much would be reduced from the general fund. So there would be funds that would normally go to the general fund that would be targeted towards infrastructure in this district. And those funds, we believe, depending on whether the new policy is adopted, would have to be matched dollar for dollar by county funds that would not necessarily have come into the city otherwise.
Are there any non-general fund monies available to pay for the comprehensive feasibility study? Or is this a thing that will be another general fund ask? Or is this eligible for FEMA reimbursement or anything else?
Yeah, I think it was requested that the CIO identify additional funding sources to pay for the consultant to look
Understood,
into.
but we all see the budget. We know there's no money. We all know there's no money. So this is just take from something else to put $300,000 toward a study. Yes? Is council action required in order to discuss and potentially partner with the county on this matter?
So the county has an adopted EIFD policy. So we know what we would need to do to apply to the county to participate. I believe there have been conversations between elected county officials and elected city officials, which our department has not been privy to. And I believe that the new EIFD policy will say that the city will not go forward with a tax increment financing district unless the county participates dollar for dollar. But I have not seen the final version of that policy, and that policy has not been adopted.
If I could add to that, the county's EIFD policy does lay out a specific process where in order for the city to formally negotiate with the county, we'd have to go through their process, which would include council adoption of a motion authorizing that negotiation.
Okay, and we're waiting for a report back on this, yeah? We were told it would be August.
So we provided a report back. which is one of the recommendations of this action. That the report back is the subject of us being here today. And then one of the recommendations in that report back is to authorize us to conduct a preliminary feasibility study. We have kind of preemptively started preparing for that preliminary assessment of the Palisades EWDD. That's what we're working on now. But in order for us to formally be able to provide that assessment, the recommendations of this report would need to be authorized.
We have CAO and CLA have a pending citywide EIFD report, which would presumably be helpful when making a decision like this. And this often happens because our processes are so slow, and then something comes along, and then people try and sort of move ahead of a very slow-moving city process, right? Colleagues, questions? Councilmember Hutt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. One of the goals of the motion that requested this report was to identify short-term disaster recovery funding. The report states that a climate resilience district is not appropriate as a tool for short-term recovery funds. What, if any, alternative options exist for creating or assessing short-term disaster recovery funds?
Thank you, Councilmember Hutt. Unfortunately, our charge was to look at whether or not this would work for short-term recovery, and we've determined that it will not. And so we don't actually have information for you right now.
For alternative?
Yeah.
And then would it be possible to conduct a comprehensive study including multiple CRDs throughout the city in order to save on potential future costs?
Yes. The typical cost of these kinds of studies has been pretty significant, so we
Yeah,
would
so
then
I'm
have
thinking
to-
of one big one. Would it be?
So one of the reasons there's a couple of reasons the studies cost so much. They do a lot of data analysis and run a bunch of different scenarios depending on the geographic area, the number of properties, the projection of assessed values. They use a lot. They use a lot of sort of real estate data and forecasting. And so if they're going to do that within one geographic area, that will cost you in this like $250,000 range. And then if they want to do it for multiple areas, it doesn't actually get a lot cheaper because you still have to analyze the same, like pretty large quantities of data in the other areas. So it doesn't get a whole lot cheaper to do a bunch of them at once. I mean, some, but not a lot.
Thank you.
If I can add to the response to Councilmember Hutt's question. So although our report identifies that CRDs aren't great for immediate recovery costs because of the time that it takes to accrue tax increment, both with a CRD and with the disaster recovery district, state legislation allows upfront costs to be reimbursed. So that is a potential strategy for the deployment of CRD funds.
Thank
Council, any more questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilmember Blumenfield?
Yeah, my ears perked up when you talked about the bill on the governor's desk. That would be a more narrow version of the CRD just for disaster areas. I'm assuming that the analysis we've done at the moment is just about a straight out CRD. How is it going to be different? I mean, obviously the one that's tailored to the natural disaster sounds like that would be much more up our alley. So we want to make sure we don't have to reinvent the wheel when that passes, right?
So our intention, if we were to be able to come back with our preliminary assessment, our intention would be to include a comparison between CRDs and the disaster recovery districts, and to identify all the difference with respect to governance and the tax increment analysis, and then also just the timing of formation. So that would be our next step, would be to report back to the council on those differences, and then potentially as a part of a feasibility study, we could bring on a consultant to help us narrow what would be the better option for the city.
But wouldn't we want to do that analysis first? I mean, before spending a big, $200,000-300,000 on the actual study, to narrow it down between the CRD natural disaster and a regular CRD. It seems like we're putting the cart before the horse if we're doing the bigger study.
Just to be real specific about the timing, we're here today before you, and then this matter goes to council. We are planning to be in front of ad hoc fire recovery in November with the next report that Jeff just described, which will be the comparison between the CRD and the DCRD, because it will have either been signed or not signed at that point, and Jeff is actually already halfway through writing that report. So then that's going to be, the next step would be our group making that recommendation between CRD and DCRD, and then also recommending that we go forward or not go forward with the consultant. So we're going to follow quickly.
So why do we have to make a decision now? Why aren't we waiting until that?
We're following sort of our process, and so we're just kind of completing this step in the process, but we haven't just been sitting still. We've been trying to be as responsive as possible to politics that's actually happening.
And just in terms of our path, so there was a motion which asked us to report back on whether a CRD could fund recovery costs. In that report back, we said it might not be a great tool to cash flow recovery costs in the near term, but the recommendation was to allow us to do a preliminary assessment to be able to look further into whether a CRD could help with recovery costs through reimbursement, or whether it could help with other critical infrastructure needs that might not necessarily be the upfront cash flows. And so this report back, like we're here for the report back, but ultimately the feasibility study is where we would highlight the tool that we recommend to move forward with.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hernandez.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you for being here today. Climate resilience districts are an important tool that the city can use to combat climate change, as y'all talked about. Are there other areas that the city has been looking at that can be considered a climate resilience district that could benefit from being added to the feasibility study?
The way that climate resilience districts were envisioned, there are a number of parts of the city that could be subject to climate related disasters, and so there are a number of parts of the city where these kinds of investments could help the city be more prepared for them. The Palisades and Eaton fire areas are the specific subject of the Disaster Climate Resilience District legislation that's in front of the governor, and so that would be more targeted to helping areas recover, whereas the CRD is targeted, it could potentially be used in other areas.
Thank you. And forgive me if this has already been asked. Is there an estimate of how much money this could divert from the general fund in the long term?
It's been asked, and we don't really have an estimate. There's way too many factors until the consultant is hired to do that analysis of the geographic area, the length of time the tax increment would be diverted, the percentage of tax increment would be diverted, and the value of the properties within that geographic area. So there's like these 4 parts that all kind of interact, and so it's really hard to estimate from here what we're talking about in terms of impact to the general fund. Though I will add, if it could also bring dollars into the city that might not have otherwise been brought into the city if the city requires that the county participates and the county actually does participate.
Great. And you talked about the disaster climate resiliency districts, right? That's what's being looked at the state level. What is the pathway for just the regular CRDs?
In terms of approval, so the current city EIFD's policy gives the process through which an EIFD would be approved. So our first step would be a preliminary assessment of the EIFD, or the CRD rather. We would bring the results of that back to council and ask for authority to hire a consultant for a comprehensive feasibility study. And then based on the results of that feasibility study. The next step would be, if there were to be a negotiation with the county, to negotiate the details of a CRD with the county. And if the city decided from that point that it wanted to form an CRD, it would adopt a resolution of intention. There's a governance board that would be created through that resolution of intention called the Public Financing Authority. The Public Financing Authority is the entity that actually governs the CRD, and the CRD would move to create a governing document that lists all of the projects and the amount of tax increment that would be included or that would be required for the CRD, called an infrastructure financing plan. That governance body would have to do community meetings, and there are some engagement requirements. They would have to give the residents an opportunity to decide whether or not they would be willing to form the CRD, and if the CRD plan was to pass this community engagement process, then the city and county, if it were to participate, would pass a final resolution officially adopting what's called the infrastructure financing plan and forming the CRD.
Great, thank you. How many jurisdictions within the city have successfully completed that process?
There are currently no CRDs or related EIFDs within the city.
Any in process?
So we've evaluated 3, one in San Pedro, one in Hollywood, and one in downtown LA. And then there's another RFP that we recently issued an RFP for along the Alameda Corridor. Those have been evaluated, but we were not able to move those forward because there's no EIFD policy or we're waiting for the updated EIFD policy that would guide that process.
Yeah, technically there is an EIFD policy that we're functioning under, but we were waiting for the updated policy.
Can I follow up on that, Madam Chair?
Sure, and then we'll come back to you, Councilwoman.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
Just wanted to ask, when is that expected to come out, the new updated EIFD?
I'll refer you to Chris Espinoza of the Chief Legislative Analyst's Office.
Thank you.
Hi,
And-
Chris Espinosa with the CLA. We're working with the CAO, and we expect to have that policy out by November.
Great, thank you. And for the 3 jurisdictions that you mentioned, how long ago were they started?
Our first study was started back in December 2018, and they kind of arose maybe every 1 or 2 years from that point.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember McCosker.
I apologize, Councilmember, for interrupting you. I was going to ask about that last comment you made about the feasibility study for the Northern Alameda Corridor. I realize we're getting a little bit off course. We should be talking about the resiliency, but if we are waiting for the report to come back on the EIFD policy for all of this, and I have an EIFD that has been waiting for years, the San Pedro one that will dramatically affect affordable housing in the harbor area. Why did an EIFD feasibility study get posted on RAMP for $200,000 to $500,000 just in the last 45 days? How does that go up? If we're causing everybody to wait, why does this go up on RAMP?
Thank you, Councilmember. What we're waiting on are 3 areas that have already been studied, and we were asked, or actually it's not our decision to make this, to put these on hold. My understanding is that the CAO's office has asked to put moving forward on the 3 that have already been studied, including the San Pedro one, on hold until the new policy is reviewed and adopted. The one in the Northern Alameda Corridor would be a 4th study that will get started. Presumably by the time that study is done, the policy that your San Pedro has been waiting for would be adopted.
Maybe I misunderstood what you said. So we're holding all the others, downtown, San Pedro, Hollywood, whatever the others are. We're holding all of them waiting for the policy, and yet we go out with a study on August 15th for the Northern Alameda Corridor. Is that because we already did studies on the others?
Yes, we've already done studies on all three of the others. That is correct. So the next step for all of those three is for council to review the information that was studied and to make a determination on to whether to move forward with an EIFD in each of those three locations.
Okay, so the others have studies.
Yep.
And who pulls the trigger on to doing a study for Northern Alameda Corridor? I'm sure it's fine, but I don't remember that coming anywhere through council
It
or in the
didn't.
budget deliberations.
It didn't go to council. The trigger was pulled by the mayor's office.
And who funded it?
It's not yet funded, so I don't think we've determined yet where the
So
funding's coming from.
we opened and we've closed the proposal period, and we are going to evaluate and issue some, actually the close date was 9/16. Oh, the close date is 9/16.
Mhm.
And so we're asking folks to make a proposal on something that has not been funded or come through council?
That's correct. So we were directed to do that by the mayor's office. We checked with the city attorney, and the city attorney said that we could issue the RFP and receive proposals, but that we can't move forward with a contract until it comes to council. So we're anticipating bringing it to council.
But is there money for the contract in FY 25-26 budget?
The mayor's office had directed us and said that they would work with us on identifying the funds.
So that's a no.
That's a no.
So there isn't money, but we're asking professionals to spend money and give us a proposal on something that we know is not funded or has gone through the council.
Let me refer you to Fred Jackson to take this
We've been
question.
directed by the mayor's office to issue this RFP to engage a EIFD consultant. We've been also asked to work with their office to identify funding sources for the $250,000 to $300,000 to pay for the consultant services. We do have a contractual service line item within our budget, department budget that we can use, but we're looking for additional funding to come from the mayor's office to help us.
So that means that before you got to this extra activity, which is nowhere in the budget, you've already completed all the other things that we budgeted, that we went through a process as a council and a mayor to budget the entire activities of the department for an entire year, and you're so far ahead of schedule that you can go off and like do some new activity that is unfunded? It's not free when you guys work, you know how hard you work to put together an RFP.
Absolutely.
So what is the budget process except a suggestion then? It's a rhetorical question, I'm sorry.
Understand.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, colleagues, I have some concerns about this item. We think it would divert some amount of general fund revenue from property taxes into a separate account. It's unclear how that account is going to be governed, whether it would duplicate services we already fund citywide, and how this will impact the city's general fund over the long term. Moreover, we also need to find several $100,000s to answer these questions, and we all know we have a number of unfunded requests already pending with the CAO. We are also waiting for a report back on a citywide EIFD policy and with different structuring options. So seeing no further questions, I can't at this moment support any more diversions of revenue in the coming years from the general fund. And so I'm going to recommend that we note and file this report. Can we vote on that? Can I get a second? Thank you.
Yaroslavsky.
Yes.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Hutt.
Yes.
McCosker.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
5 ayes, this item will be received and filed.
Thank you. We're going to move now to item 13. I'd like to welcome up the CAO staff to answer some very brief questions. Mr. Wexler, would you please read the item?
Item 13, motion Gerardo Soto Martinez relative to Budget and Finance Committee report on the mayor's proposed budget for 2025-26 to identify $460,000 for a public bank study, including collaborating with council offices on the potential use of discretionary funds to fund the study. As this is a motion at this time, we don't have staff who have done any substantive work on this, but I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. We have a brief amendment on this item. I'd like to move that the Budget and Finance Committee report on the mayor's proposed budget for fiscal year 25-26 be amended to instruct the city administrative officer with assistance from the chief legislative analyst to identify up to $460,000 for a public bank study, less the funding already approved by council or currently pending for this purpose pursuant to Council File 19-1235-S1, including collaborating with council offices on the potential use of discretionary funds to fund the study. I do have a couple of questions for the CAO, if they are here. So my understanding is that the money would be required to come from the general fund. Is that true? And are there any restrictions on where funding can come from for a feasibility study like this?
So, yeah, we haven't completed our review of this as the motion is yet to be approved, but our initial belief would be that this is very likely to be a general fund obligation, that no other special fund sources would be available or be eligible to be used for this purpose.
Okay, thank you. What about philanthropy or outside money? Is that something that we've talked about, worked on?
Certainly, outside sources of funds from outside the city altogether, if anybody, any philanthropy or other outside contributions could be used for something like this.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, any other questions about this item? Is that a no, Councilwoman Hernandez?
Yeah, it's a no, sorry.
Okay. Okay, so colleagues, I think this is a really interesting idea, given that the city would save money that we pay to commercial banks, which is why I'm supportive of finding money for the study. However, there remain a lot of questions on the feasibility of capitalizing and administering a public bank. And it's worth noting that Angelenos have already considered this at the ballot box in 2018, and they voted this down. But I'm going to use this opportunity to make an additional request, because my understanding is that the council's already asked the CAO to identify funding for a number of priorities this fiscal year. But this committee doesn't necessarily see all those requests, and I would like for us to have greater transparency on the list of unfunded requests that have been advanced by this body and our policy committees. So, colleagues, I recommend that we instruct the CAO to report back to Budget and Finance Committee as part of each financial status report, beginning with the first FSR coming to this committee soon, with a list of pending unfunded requests, including this public bank feasibility study, so that we can consider how to prioritize these initiatives should funds become available. Thank you. Yes.
I just want to put it on the record that if thank you to all the council offices that have put in money already, but if there are any other council districts that haven't put in any discretionary funds, if they would think about it. I know some of us are working, try to get philanthropy at the table so they could match us.
Excellent. Wish I had more discretionary money I would throw in. Okay. Madam Clerk, can we call the roll?
Yaroslavsky.
Yes.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Hutt.
Aye.
McCosker.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
5 ayes. This item is approved as amended, as stated by the chair.
Thank you. We're going to move now to item 1, which is called special by Council Members Hernandez and Blumenfield. Mr. Wexler, would you please read the item?
Item 1, Chief Legislative Analyst reports relative to an opioid remediation program.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Councilwoman Hernandez, and then, no? Yes? Oh, Blumenfield. Sorry.
Okay. Just given the time, and I'm on a very short time, rather than ask questions, I'm going to just make 4 recommendations that I hope will fly. 1 is to amend recommendation 5 of the Arts Parks report to add Circle and LAFD. 2 is to add a recommendation 7, to instruct DOD to consult with interested council offices to determine district need prior to the release of the RFP. 3, add recommendation 8, instruct the CLA to report back within 30 days with options for adding 2 positions in DOD and CAO to administer all programs funded by the opioid settlement. And 4, to add recommendation 9, to instruct the CLA with the assistance of the CAO, LAHD, and DOD to engage with the county to explore complementary funding for services for people experiencing homelessness in need of opioid remediation services.
Councilwoman Hernandez. Yes.
Thank you. Just for clarity's sake, on item, recommendation 7, on the second one you brought up, Councilmember, where it says instruct DOD to consult, I just want clarity on that you don't have to come back to us on that, right? Perfect. Like, once you do those check-ins, you can release that RFP. Is that correct?
Yes.
Beautiful, thank you.
We just need authority to release the RFP, so we need the council to give the Department of Disability the authority to release the RFP after we consult with council districts.
Yeah, I would like to move to do that, please.
Yeah, just to be clear, we're not trying to slow anything down.
Yeah, no,
It's
yeah.
just
Yeah, just
making,
wanted
making
clarity.
sure that we are not after the fact saying, why didn't,
100%. I just wanted everybody to be on the same page.
Yes, we'll work with the Department of Disability and we'll schedule meetings with all council offices.
Interested offices.
Interested offices.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, colleagues? Okay. Seeing no further questions or comments, I recommend that we approve this item as amended by Council Members Blumenfield, as seconded by Councilwoman Hernandez. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yaroslavsky.
Yes.
Blumenfield.
Bloomfield, aye.
Hutt. Aye. McCosker.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
5 ayes, this item is approved as amended.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We're going to move now to item 7, called special by Councilmember Blumenfield. Mr. Wexler, would you please read the item?
Item 7, Department of Transportation report relative to an overview and update of the parking citation fine study and increases.
Councilmember Blumenfield.
Okay, I'll try to, I know we're in a time crunch, cut my comments and really just focus on a recommendation. But, the concern is about parking in bike lanes and how we enforce that. So my recommendation is going to be to delete the recommendation to reduce the fine for parking more than 18 inches from the curb from this report, but to add an instruction to have LADOT report back within 30 days with recommendations for establishing a parking violation with an objective standard to allow ticketing of vehicles that partially or completely block a bike lane with appropriate fines that reflect the safety hazard this creates, and recommendations about enhanced fines for parking in a marked AB 413 red zone.
I will second that. Colleagues, questions, comments, thoughts? Oh,
Question, I'm sorry, I don't want to delay us. Sorry.
it's okay.
Past assessments suggest that higher citation fees can lead to reduced payment compliance. I know that's why there was a lot of state laws that changed what that collection looked like. How is the department accounting for this potential outcome, and will this be addressed in the new report when recommending additional increases?
Hi, I'm Desiree Gazetta. I'm with the Department of Transportation. Could you please repeat that?
Yes. Past assessments suggest that higher citation fees can lead to reduced payment compliance. How is the department accounting for this potential outcome, and will this be addressed in the new report when recommending additional increases?
So we haven't gotten that far in the optimization study that we're currently doing because according to the California Vehicle Code, we need to make sure that we're commensurate with the fines that are within the other cities within LA County. And so right now what we're focused on is the decreases that we can do because decreasing fines has shown over time that low-income populations, for example, can pay those fines and will pay those fines. And that leads to increased revenue for the department and the city. So as far as the increases, we will have to get back to you on that, and we will definitely incorporate that into the report that you just requested.
Great, thank you. Thank you for sharing that information around the
welcome.
lower costs. Thank you. That's it for me. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're ready to vote on the item as amended by Councilmember Blumenfield.
Yaroslavsky.
Yes.
Blumenfield.
Bloomfield, aye.
Hutt.
Aye.
McCosker.
Yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
5 ayes, this item is approved as amended.
Excellent. I think that we've concluded all of our open session items. Can we please prepare the room for closed session? Session.
Oh, are we back in open? Okay, thank you. Yes, would you like me to recall the roll?
Sure.
Yaroslavsky.
Here.
Blumenfield. Hutt.
Here.
McCosker.
Here.
Hernandez absent. 4 members present and a quorum, Madam Chair. There's nothing to report out of closed session.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any other items on the desk?
The desk is clear.
Thank you. This concludes our meeting. Have a good evening, everyone.